$200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure. Now you're playing with power, superpower. You're the king, I tell you! The king!
Only for Super NES.
Only on Super NES.
You're listening to the SNES podcast with your host, Soulblazer.
Hello, everybody. This is the Super NES podcast coming at you as always. This is episode 145. We're getting close to a milestone here. So, this is Greg, one of your usual co-hosts. I'm very pleased today not only have our current co-host, Joe.
Hello.
We're also joined by a former co-host, George.
I'm sorry, Joe.
We're going to have a battle of the ghosts here.
Only one will survive.
Is this a fight to the death, or?
It is now.
Oh, I don't know. Joe's pretty hungry, so.
So anyway, we gave George standing permission, of course, to come back to the podcast anytime he wanted to.
And now the permission has been revoked.
And as in we, it was Greg.
Well, technically, this is my podcast, so.
Oh, he's put his foot down, Joe.
Now I'm really being challenged.
Just like how, like with George was doing PlayStation Power with his podcast, so all of his rules had to stand. So.
Wait, PlayStation what? What is that?
That former podcast we used to do together.
Wait, we did a podcast together?
Yes.
Oh.
But.
I thought that was a fever dream.
So anyway, George brought, surprise, surprise, another Japanese game for us to cover this time around. What game did you cover? What game did you want us to cover this time, George, and why did you want us to cover it?
Metal Max Returns, because it's a good game.
How did you hear about this?
Oh, geez. A little bit of a story, I guess, maybe. I think you guys already know this, but once in a while I go and look for Japanese translated games, and I didn't find this specifically, but I found Metal Max 3, which is a DS game. And that got me hooked on the series. You know, I looked it up and found out that it's this whole series starting from the Famicom. And Metal Max 3 was somewhat recently translated. They're working on another one. I think it's the remake of Metal Max 2 for the DS. And the original Metal Max was translated, so I played a little bit of that. But then I found out that Metal Max Returns, which is a straight-up remake of the first game for the Super Famicom, was also translated. So I decided to play that instead.
Yeah,
so,
the actual lineage and history of this franchise gets a little bit confusing. So this is going to be challenging to talk about. But
I know there's 17 entries.
yes.
I'm glad you wrote that down.
Well, why don't we just go over the broad strokes here, like right now, because I'm sure a lot of people like myself have never heard of this franchise.
All you need to know is tanks.
It does involve a lot of
That's
tanks,
true.
yes, true, but
That's in my notes.
Is it the first thing on your notes, or?
Yes. The first thing in my notes is you hijack a tank, you kick ass, and there's lots of tanks. Just a primer.
I don't know how you didn't enjoy yourself then.
no. There's also APCs and humans, humans and buggies and like some of the vehicles and vehicles too. So it's not all just tanks.
My.
Yeah. So the Metal Max franchise actually dates all the way back to 1989. 1991 when the first game came out on the Famicom in Japan. This game's had several developers over the years. A company called Crytek was the one who made most of the games in the franchise. There were a few other companies also involved, but Crytek's the one who's primarily been involved with the games over the years. Crytek is one of those small niche Japanese companies that does a lot of stuff. You know, they're not really a huge company, but they just simply do well because they cater to their fans' needs and can are successful in marketing like those fans. So, because besides console games, they also they also have developed and released computer games, mobile games, like even board games. So, very few of their games that come out here in the States. They've been around since 1988. Besides this, they've also worked on Tower Dream for the Super NES, PlayStation, Hero Connection, which is a mobile game, and a whole bunch of other Japanese titles. So, very niche developer. Most of the games in the series were published by Data East. We've covered Data East before in the past, like on this podcast. Some of the newer, the current publisher is a company called Kadokawa Games in Japan, and NIS America has the rights to it in North America. So, so that's who has the publishing rights to the series now. But because of trademark problems, like for a while, some of the games in the series, the series also got released under an alternate title, which is very curious, like a Metal Saga. So, depending upon what you're looking at, Metal Saga, Metal Max, they're all essentially the same games like the same franchise. So,
Metal Saga is also the name of the first game that came out over here on the PS2.
Yes.
And
but just gonna say, like,
that's a good game.
Yeah, but just gonna say, like, only one game has officially come out in North America, like this franchise.
No, 2 games.
I only have
Metal Saga and Metal Max Xeno.
Xeno. Did that get a release over here? Let's see.
2018, it came out over here.
Oh yeah, you're right. I apologize. PS4 and Vita game. So, and then when you just talked about Mega Saga, that was a PS2 game. So, the first game, but however, most of these games, including this one, have fan translate it. Because this franchise does have a pretty small but devoted fan base over here in the West. It seems like what I can tell, like online.
Enough to translate it.
Yeah, exactly. So, the very first game, Metal Max, came up Famicom in '91, like I mentioned. That was followed up by a sequel 2 years later, Metal Max 2, like the Super Famicom. And this was the game. This was the game that was and then after that, the timeline gets a little bit confusing here. So, the first game, Metal Max, got ported to the Super Famicom 2 years later, in 1995, and that's Metal Max Returns. And that's a game covered here, like in this podcast. So, gets a little bit confusing, but also because of the fact that Metal Max has also been ported again. Actually, was ported twice over, I think. Right? Let me look on here. Let's see.
Well, so I don't remember seeing that.
Let me see. Hold on a second here.
There's 17 titles. I mean, there's a lot.
Hey, Joe, make your stomach talk again.
No, yeah.
It's all about tanks.
Yeah. Okay. No, sorry. I apologize. There was a this game. So, okay. Yeah. Here we go. We did get a port. It got ported to the Game Boy Advance 2003.
You know what? You're right. Yep, I remember that now.
And it also got released on the Wii Virtual Console, like in Japan, and also the 3DS Virtual Console.
Oh.
So if you're in Japan, at least it's playable. Playable like most systems, like as well. This game, Metal Max.
Just get a DS flash card,
right.
And
what I was thinking about earlier was that this game, Metal Max Mega Max Returns, Metal Max Returns, got a direct sequel called Metal Saga Season of Steel, like on the DS 2006.
Oh yeah.
So, like I said, this is a lot of the games take place in the same setting, the same kind of safe kind of world. Not always, but
it's not the same place,
right.
But it's the same world where it's post-apocalyptic, but it's like the machines turned on the humans.
Yeah. Kind of like a kind of like a Terminator, like you're a setting like in some ways. So
yeah.
It's like they got their own little Dr. Wily running around.
Right.
With tanks.
Yeah. So basically, like your human civilization is like scattered across like the survivors, like the villages and ruins. People who fight to protect them are called monster hunters. And to fight, they salvage tanks and tank parts. To defeat the monsters and outlaws and collect bounties. That's how they make their living. So, and like you play as the hunter, of course, like in this game, setting out originally be a bounty hunter, and then like of course as it happens with games like this, there's a bigger quest that gets revealed to you as the game goes on. So, obviously being focused on tanks, there are a lot of like tanks and other mechanized vehicles in this game. The first tank you find, like, it's called the Mosquito. And as the game goes on, you can also pick up a Tiger, like an LAV, an Abrams, a Red Wolf, and also like a White Maru, to help like fight your battles as well. So, this game, Tomato Max Returns, is just basically what you'd expect, kind of like a game ported from the 8-bit systems. It has like better graphics and sound. There's new quests added. There's new items added. There's new areas added. Some of the areas previously in there like revised. I took a look at the original game, the Famicom game, on YouTube. It looks pretty good already, but I think the sequel did I'm sorry, not a sequel, a remake. Like I said before, it's very confusing. I think this remake did a very good job, like, on expanding the game and also like fleshing it out like a bit more. Because some games upgraded to later systems. There's kind of like a new coat of paint, and that's it. This game they actually put in some effort to it.
Yeah, when I was looking up this game on YouTube, because I just wanted to see if I was...
Because you gave up?
Yes, because I gave up. And I wanted to see the rest of the game. And I noticed a lot of people had done the comparison with the 8-bit. And I actually liked the improvements that they made. I think if I had played the 8-bit version, I would have been even more meh than what I am here.
Ooh.
Probably. I
opinion.
Yeah, I played the original one. Probably Joe.
Yeah.
You don't like good games, I remember that.
Well, both this game and also its original Famicom version have been fan translated. And they also, I remember George and I talked a little about this, like off of mic earlier. Somebody a few years ago wanted to do a fan translation about the GBA ports. That project seems to have stalled. Although I don't really know, maybe it's still going on. Because somebody was like, "Hey, I know the Japanese. I just can't figure out how the ROM gets extracted and how it's compressed on the game." So he's looking for help.
Well,
with
I don't
that.
know about that, but I know ever since the completion of the translation of Metal Max 3 on the DS, apparently there's a remake of Metal Max 2 on the DS.
Right. Yep.
And the team that worked on Metal Max 3 is helping the team that is working on the Metal Max 2 remake, and they've made leaps and bounds of progress because the two games are technically similar in ways of engine and whatnot.
Yep,
so
yeah, that makes sense. So
yeah.
Well, we're not gonna understand. The GBA port didn't really add too much. It was pretty much anyway. It was just one of like straight Super NES to Game Boy ports that they were doing like the time periods.
What's very interesting about these games is how they're translated by different teams, but a lot of the stuff stays the same.
Mm-hmm.
So like when it comes to Japanese, it's the age-old thing of like, if you go and try to play translated Final Fantasy V, you'll see that the fan translation sounds much different from like the legitimate Square Enix translation. And the number one thing with that is like the name Bartz. Sometimes it could be interpreted as butts.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And it's very interesting to see that the translation of this game and the other fan translations out there, which are made by different teams, are pretty similar actually in tone and a lot of the terms and stuff that they use. It's very interesting. And then I went and played Metal Max Xeno, and it was so strange to me because they actually this wasn't a fan translation thing. They legitimately got somebody to do the translation for the game, and it just felt so odd to me. It didn't have that original feeling I had when I first started Metal Max 3. very interesting.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So George, since it was like your game to bring to the podcast, you want to talk about the game in broad strokes, like the gameplay, like what you're doing?
You get kicked out of your house because daddy is mean and he give you no money. You're right. Hey, it sounds like my life. No. I'm assuming like you turn 18 or you're 18 or whatever, and you wanna become a hunter, a monster hunter or whatever. No, wait, that's a different game. No, I think it is. Is it called Monster Hunter? I don't remember now for some reason. My mind is blank. Anyway, you want to be a hunter. Sure. A bounty hunter, whatever. And your father says there's no money in that. You're going to get yourself killed, so on and so forth. And he kicks you out of the house. He disowns you. He goes that far. And, you're out in the world now and you're free to do whatever, which whatever means shooty, killy, tanky. This is like maybe not like one of the earliest games, but it's a pretty early game for it to be like pretty open-ended, quote unquote. Like you can't just do anything, but the world is open and you have to like you can explore it, and there are certain areas where you have to figure out how to explore it, I guess you could say. And you like almost nothing is told to you. You go out there and then you just randomly find a giant cannon that's shooting at you, and you have to come up with a strategy and stuff. You come across these roadblocks that there's no, your character's not saying, oh, maybe I should go get Alpha Omega part and then I could go beat this cannon. It's like you might be sitting there like, how the F do I get past this cannon? And I'm sure Joe screamed that out. So honestly, I screamed that out. I was like, how the heck do I get past these cannons? Yeah. And you just brute force it.
Yeah, I'd agree with most of that. I think this game does meet the definition of like an open-ended game, because you have like like it's non-linear. There is a main plot you can do, but you're not forced to do it.
And you choose right. What bounties you want to take.
Exactly.
And,
right. Yep.
You can take them or not.
Yep.
So.
Yep. You can also like upgrade your you can also like upgrade your classes and your tanks, like how you want to upgrade them to. And the ending's also determined by your actions. There's multiple endings. So right. So all those things I'd say definitely qualify this for being like an open-ended game. Maybe not open-ended in the sense we think of open-ended now in 2020, but definitely open-ended like the time period. So, it was very impressive to actually have that in a game, like a game this time period.
I actually have to ask, did anyone go back and talk to the dad and tell them that they were done being a hunter?
No, I didn't.
You did, Joe?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I didn't do it either, but there's a choice to make, like saying like, oh, I give up, like, can I come back home or whatever? But I never made that choice, and I'm wondering if that's like a quick like end of the game thing. Yeah. Because a lot of the games further on in the series, like Metal Saga, you can beat Metal Saga very quickly by just selecting to instead not be a hunter but be a mechanic. Right. And then your mother teaches you how to be a mechanic, and then you beat the game. And then like later on in the same game, like when you go to the next town, you can choose to, like, you could talk to this girl that you know and be like, hey, let's get married, and then you just get married, and then the game is over. And then like Metal Max 3, there's something similar. You play for like a couple hours or whatever, and then there's a choice to just run away from all your problems and get married to this girl that you don't know. Right. So
well, I do know that you can keep playing the game after an ending, because I did get one ending and the game didn't end. The game gave me the choice to keep playing, so that's kind of cool.
Wait, you beat the game?
Well, I got one of the endings. It wasn't the... Okay. I didn't go all the way through the game. We're going to talk about that later on, but...
Yeah, there's so much in this game, I couldn't get through it.
But yeah, so I end up getting stuck, and then, I like, as we discussed...
I want to know where you got stuck.
But I don't remember. And
He
it was
played it
early.
for an hour and gave up.
I was gonna
Oh.
say it was early on. I'll be honest, it was early on.
Did you get
But,
stuck on the cannons?
I actually think it was the cannons.
Oh, that's very early in the game.
But anyways, so
I told you you could ask me for help.
I know. So I went and watched YouTube videos because I figured that'd be easier. And I was hoping that I would come across a spot at, during the gameplay, which you could go back to the father and be like, hey, that Monster Hunter thing? Hey, screw you, it worked. Kind of throw it back in his face. But
I'm rolling
you know.
around with like 20,000 gold, and I'm like, hey, daddy. And he's like, you're not my son. And I'm like, you know what? You see this money? It's not yours. It's not yours, dad.
That's right. So I was a little upset when I found out that you basically can't go back and shove it in your father's face that you've been successful. But
Yeah, I know. Like when you first get the tank and you talk to him, he's like, oh, you got a vehicle. Oh, so what? Ho, ho, ho.
Right. Yeah,
So, George, how people kind of get a sense of things.
In which way?
Is there a game or franchise that you'd compare this to? Maybe your closest fit.
Oh,
Advanced
you know what?
Wars?
I had something on the tip of my tongue and now I completely forgot it.
Well, I agree with
It
Joe.
feels
Advanced
like
Wars is the first game that came to
Yeah,
mind.
the Advanced
when
Wars
you were
was the
this.
first thing that came to my mind.
It's so strange because, Greg told me that before, and I was like, really? I don't really get that from it,
It's the mech thing. It really is.
Kind of also feels a
Alright.
little bit like Final Fantasy. Except the humans, you have tanks.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as a matter
It
of fact,
reminds me of, a strange RPG version of Mech Warrior.
I can see that.
I
Sure.
can go with that.
Yeah, like a turn-based Mech Warrior kind of.
Yeah, I actually told Joe earlier I could not find this online, but apparently the Japanese commercial for this game, they actually use the tagline we're sick and tired of dragons, because it's kind of an RPG, but we're doing tank things that dragon things. So they actually played that up pretty heavily, an advertising campaign.
Yeah.
But because the game's sold pretty well in Japan.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry, this just popped into my head. It's kind of like a more RPG version of Front Mission.
that works. I can see that. Sure.
Yeah.
But
All right. Continue. I'm sorry.
But yeah, of course, Front Mission didn't have the open-ended, the world map and the world map situation that this game does.
But you were able to kind of customize your vehicle.
True, exactly, yes.
This game is way better with customization. It's
I was actually
really
surprised
cool.
at how deep it is. Yes, there actually is a very
and it gets
deep
even
system.
more ridiculous with
Yeah.
the further games.
Yeah,
It's
so.
like Metal Max. By the time of Metal Max 3, it's so ridiculous. I'm just sometimes I confuse myself when I play that game because
Right.
it's like, all right, wait, what cannon do I have on what tank and what? Did Greg? I know Joe didn't get to this, but Greg, did you get to the frozen town?
No, I did not.
Oh, okay. So there's a frozen town, and in the basement there's a rogue tank, and it's a giant mammoth. And in Metal Max 3, there's this lab where you collect resources and whatnot, and you make a bio tank, and one of the selections is that mammoth tank.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, that
Right,
mammoth
it's in the
tank is
basement.
really, really hard to take out. I couldn't take it out.
But it's in a basement.
Yeah, it's in the basement.
So how do you get it out of the basement?
You use the elevator.
No, you didn't say there was an elevator.
Well, you know what, Joe? Maybe you should have gotten that far and you would have known.
I don't even believe you. Even Greg can't, back you up on this one.
Oh boy.
Yeah. When you customize your tank, you also have to take into account, balance, weight and balance. Yeah, because if you load the tank too much, it can't move. So you have to be careful as to how much stuff you actually put on there. So,
So
It just
wh-
matters
what?
how much you go pew pew.
Yes.
well, even your choice of
it's-
that is diversified because weapons fall in 3 classes in this game. You got cannons, machine
Right.
guns, and special weapons. So
Yes.
you have to
so
kind of.
the way that vehicles works is that they're it's not just all tanks. There's different vehicles.
Right. Yeah.
The ones that I can think of is the first one you do get is a tank. It's like stripped down, but it's something. And then the next thing you could get is like a buggy, which doesn't have a cannon, but you can upgrade it to get like a special weapon on it. But it comes with an autogun, which is the machine gun. Those are the ones that have unlimited ammo.
Mm.
And then there's another one you could get like I think it's like an ambulance. So there's that. I haven't gotten that one yet, but I know how to get it. I just can't fight the guy. He's very tough. You have to fight this weird whacked out guy in some hospital basement or something.
Yeah, I actually did not mention this earlier, but would you believe one of the changes that they also made to Metal Max, like Metal Max Return, was to make the game easier?
Yeah, I would believe that. Yeah, I believe that 100%.
Apparently as hard as this game was, the original Metal Max was a lot harder.
Yeah, I played a little bit of that the first game. I think I got to the cannons on the first game, and then I found out that there was the remake.
And this is a Japanese game, mind you, and the Japanese are notorious for being like much more nose to grindstone gamers than we are. So
well, honestly, the name of the game is it's a typical, I don't know, kill things for 20 hours and then you'll be able to progress type of game, you know? So with the vehicles, again, like we talked about before, you could like buy new parts and weapons for the tanks and in vehicles. And then on top of that, like you can upgrade them. So there's this weight system.
Right.
And this is where the game turns into like play how you want, because you can balance it any way you want. And what I like to do is I like to make sure that I have enough weight for like at least 1,000 armor or something like that. But like I like to increase my defense, so it's pretty customizable. You can there's different things you could do. The chassis which is like the main which is like, you know, an integral part. It's like the main part of the vehicle. You can upgrade things like durability and whatnot. It increases defense and whatnot. The chassis can never be destroyed, so you'll never lose your vehicle. It'll just be destroyed enough not to, like, you can't operate it. Okay. You need a CPU. Is that what it's called? Something like that.
There's a computer system.
Yeah, computer system. Yep. You need a computer system and an engine to use a vehicle.
Correct.
And the engine is the main thing, because the engine, the more the horsepower, the more weight you can carry.
Yeah.
And that's very integral. Like, that's always the first thing that I look to buy, is a better engine. And then I try to get money to upgrade the engine so it carries a lot of weight. And then that's when I start upgrading the durability of the chassis. And then, you know, I see how much armor you could get. You can, so see how much armor I could get.
I focused all on weapons.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing to do. It's just you got to watch out for your survivability.
Right.
Yeah.
There's actually total like 8 vehicles that you can collect in this game.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's interesting because the way that the armor works, it doesn't tell you in this game, but taking information from games later on in the series, like the armor that's on your vehicle is just stuck on there. It's just like there are tiles that you just stick to the vehicle. I don't know how that works.
You just use bubble gum to keep it there.
Yeah, and when you run out of bubble gum, you know, you're screwed.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So, but yeah. So, the graphics of this game, like I mentioned before, were upgraded from the earlier original 8-bit version, and of course, like any game that's upgraded, the graphics are not as good as they could be if the game was originally developed for the Super NES. But you know, for port of a game, you know, it looks pretty good. I mean, like, you know, it's nice, nice detail, nice color palette. You know, they're serviceable graphics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like I was probably spoiled because, you know, being an upgrade, it looks better than it does, obviously, on the Famicom.
Right, yeah.
But compared to other stuff that's out at this time on the Super Famicom, I feel like they're just kind of, medium of the road.
Right,
You know what
Well,
I mean?
hey, it's more about the
Exactly.
gameplay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, look,
Yeah.
you can say what you want, George. I'm just saying.
You know what, Joe? You know what? This is revenge for Tobal number 1, okay?
Okay, Tobal number 1 had a pretty, active game. I'm just saying.
That's an awful game.
Quest mode was awesome. Quest mode was awesome.
Yeah, so I did not really write down much about the music. The music in this game was not bad. It was not bad. It was just like kind of like,
It's
decent.
better than not bad.
Yeah,
I actually
so-
thought the
It's
soundtrack
good.
was okay. I wouldn't go so far to, compare it to any of the other heavy hitters on the Super NES.
Oh
but it was
no,
serviceable.
no, it's nowhere near, any masterpieces on the Super Famicom or the Super Nintendo, but the music is still pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I liked it. I liked it, and I thought, I thought it was appropriate for the game. It just didn't like stick with me too much after the game itself. So
It's
Yeah,
funny
yeah.
because a lot of the music is similar to the music of the later games.
oh really?
So
Okay.
you're just like, oh, this is like the Super Famicom version of like this song.
Okay, that's cool.
It's really cool.
But yeah, so we already mentioned the challenge. This is a pretty difficult game.
Especially for Joe.
I mean, like,
Whatever, man.
I mean, like, you're definitely encouraged to explore. You're definitely encouraged to like do a lot of side quests first. You're definitely encouraged to take your time, like upgrading your vehicle and trying out different configurations, like whatnot. But there definitely is. Again, George and I talked about this earlier. There's no the game doesn't really tell you anything. There's no there's no help. There's no tutorial. It's just kind of like you have to learn to go pretty much.
It's just
So,
like, go.
yeah.
Like, you'll talk. This is one of those games where talking to people is really good. Some of them give you hints on, like, some, like, maybe they might say something about a vehicle and you might learn something new, or, oh, I heard there's this guy in this cave and he gave you millions of gold or something, like they,
Right.
like people, it's not like typical video game thing where you talk to somebody and it's like, there is a guy in the cave, please go there. Like, no, you go talk to somebody, it's like, hey, have you heard the rumors? There's noises in that cave nearby. And then you go into the cave and see what's going on, Or like,
Or you don't.
there was a guy that was living in this town before, but he stole everybody's money. He ran away and we don't know where the heck he went. And then you're like, oh, like there's a guy that ran away with people's money. I wonder if I'm gonna bump into him later,
Right.
There's
did
stuff
you?
like that. Sometimes you get tips
Yep,
on
true.
bounties, like,
Yep.
oh, I think I saw so and so over here or whatever, But the one thing I don't like is the how a lot of the bounties are random encounters.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to be lucky, but then when you're not trying to encounter the bounty, you get unlucky and you encounter it, and you try to run away and you can't for like a turn or two, and it just destroys your vehicle.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's
fun.
that's a flaw a lot of like RPGs of this time period had. The Suikoden games are also pretty bad, like in that sense, because it's like
Yeah.
there's certain rare characters that you can only find in random battles, and it's like it always like so it's like we're trying to find them, they never show up. So we're just
You probably have a better chance of getting a shiny in Pokemon.
that's true too. Pokemon's also like a good example. So, but
Yeah.
yeah. So Joe, so overall, I know this is probably not a kind of game that you'd enjoy as much as like George or I do, just because I know the kind of game that you usually like enjoy playing. I'm curious to know like
bad
overall what you
games.
thought about it.
So I do like RPGs, and I am a turn-based RPG guy. Like, I'm not too into a lot of the action RPGs that are out now. But like I was telling George before we started, like as a spoiler, like I just kind of saw this as meh. It's like middle of the road. It's not horrible, and it's not bad. Like, I would never use the word bad for this game. But you're not going to see me sitting there talking about this game in the same breath as like Final Fantasy 2 or Final Fantasy 3.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I talked about Super Mario RPG before I talked about this game, to be honest.
I mean, I think the thing is, like, those games are kind of different, though. Like, they're RPGs, sure, but like if you're talking about like Final Fantasy 3, are you talking about Final Fantasy 3 or Final Fantasy 6? First of all,
Final Fantasy 6, obviously.
Okay,
Come on, this is an SNES
come on,
podcast.
Final Fantasy 3 is a good game.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It is a good game, but I'm just saying, 6 for what it is, a lot of people consider 6 a masterpiece.
But
like even better than 7, you know what I mean?
But either way, I mean, the games are kind of different. So, like, I mean, of course you
Like,
can
I
make
was
the
joking
comparison
with you.
right between two RPGs, but
right. I mean,
Yeah.
I was joking with you earlier when I said I hated this. I don't hate it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yes, I got frustrated, and I did, just decided to put it down and not pick it up. Part of that is life. The other part of that is like, yes, I got stuck and I didn't want to deal with it, and I just kind of was like, I'll go watch a YouTube video. I'll be honest. But like I said, I like the graphical look of it. The music is okay. Like Greg said, the music's not going to stick with you, unfortunately, in my opinion. And and gameplay is what it is. It's an RPG where you upgrade your tank. So, I mean, I enjoyed it for what it was, but it's it's not going to be one of those where I'm going to pull someone aside when we're talking about the Super NES and be like, dude, there's this awesome Super Famicom game that you got to play. You know what I mean? It's just not going to happen.
it's called Chrono Trigger.
Kind of depends upon the kind of game the person's into, though, Joe, because I certainly can see, like I said before, this game has developed kind of a niche following here in the West, even though most of the games never got released. And, like, somebody who enjoys a game of this type, I definitely think this is kind of an overlooked gem. I agree.
Considering all the people I know that play video games, George is the first person I've ever heard mention this game.
Yeah,
to be fair.
Yeah, exactly. Me neither. I never heard of this either. But having played this, I do want to keep playing it more, and I am curious to check out some of the other games.
I did just download Metal Max Xeno for my Vita, so I mean,
There you go.
it obviously
you're gonna hate me. I did not suggest that game to you because that game's a little lackluster. Okay, I'll just let you know that. I did not suggest that game to you.
But this has definitely opened it up to where I've the English ones that were brought over here, like I'll probably look for the PS2 game at some point.
Good luck finding it as an Atlas game, and you know how small their print ones were.
Yeah, but ISO. So
Who said anything about getting the physical copy?
We're not.
That's all we do.
Yeah, we're
we
not
always get the physical.
Exactly.
Copy.
We're not condoning anything else here, like on here, but
Hey, smoke up, kids. I mean, what?
but yeah. So I guess I kind of fall between you two guys. I mean, like, I agree with Joe the fact this game is okay for what it is, but I think this is a very for its time period, this is a very surprisingly deep game. There definitely is more here than I expected. And it definitely is fun. I mean, like, it's frustrating. It's definitely very challenging. I think some of the difficulty is cheap. But I do think if you have the patience and you're the kind of person who enjoys a game like this, this is a pretty good game.
This is one of those games where it'll let you know that you're in the wrong part of town.
Very fast, yes. So.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, like, I definitely am curious to check out the games of the franchise because, like I said, like Joe said, we never heard of this before. Probably before George brought it to our attention, and it's like kind of a shame this game. It's kind of a shame this series did not get more press over here. I think that this kind of game, I think would have done well over here. I guess they decided to just wasn't worth the effort and the time to bother translating and porting it. So
right,
because the game's so decently in Japan. The original Famicom version sold 150,000 copies, and this version of the game sold about 170,000 copies. Side note, never complain about prices here in the West, because do you know how much this game sold for Japan?
Nope.
Max returns to over 12,800 yen in Japan, which then was equivalent, which then mind you, 95 was equivalent of $165.
All right, and let's go to inflation calculator.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, never complain about prices if the price of the games over here. So,
What did you say? What did you say the price was?
in 1995, 12,800 yen.
Right. What is that in America dollars?
Then it was 165. So,
165.
yes. So,
What year was that again?
this came out in 1995.
Oh boy,
Give it to me.
$281.41.
Right. Yeah. So, expensive game.
Hey, I heard Nintendo's selling games at that price now, so.
True.
So I wonder. So this was not my original pick, honestly. There was another game that I was actually gonna tell you about, and then I put that to the side. And I wonder if you guys were gonna like that other game better.
What game is that?
It's another game you don't know of. It's called The Adventure of Hore High. It's kind of like Earthbound in a way.
Oh, okay. All
but,
right.
like, not as super free. It's weird, but it's like not. It's not on par with Earthbound, but it's kind of Earthboundy.
Right.
And that game's really cool because you're this high school student. Stop me if you heard that before. And you're new. It's this high school, like, on this island or whatever. And you're new, and you end up joining the newspaper club or whatever the heck it is. And you start getting stories for the newspaper, and this weird stuff happens. And it's got a really cool system where you join different clubs, and some of them have restrictions based on level or stats or something.
Okay.
And the different clubs give you different powers. Some of them are active powers and some of them are passive powers. Like, oh, you get extra money, like, from every fight, or your stats get a passive bonus of +5 or something like that. And you get, like, ranks, and the experience you gain when you're in a club, you collect the experience, and then you rank up in the club when you get to a certain amount, and then they give you extra powers. And it's a pretty cool there's a pretty cool game. And there's also, like, a friendship system. You get friendship points for every battle you fight with friends, and then you can invest the friendship points into friends, and they get new abilities and they get stronger and whatnot.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
So, a couple of the
that's a hard game too.
So a couple other notes, like, about the game and the franchise. I mentioned before how this game also received a GBA port in Japan. Apparently that version of the game is very hard to find because Data East sold the rights of it to another company because they were separated by them. They were in severe financial difficulty, and that company released a port of the game with several bugs that apparently were, like, pretty serious. So that version of the game was recalled. And there's not very many copies of the game available now. So, for whichever reason that the GBA version has not been translated yet, because that version has some bugs in it. So, the two games that did come over here in the West probably were not the best games in the franchise to be picked for Western release, because both those games got very bad reviews. They definitely have, like, a very mixed reviews, and they came over here, like, in the West, like. Like in most, the average, the average ratings of the games, like, in the 60s. You flat have 100, so probably did not help the chances of any of the games coming out here in the West. But there is a game being worked on right now in the franchise still, Metal Max Code Zero. George, you indicated this is a remake, right?
No, there's another one. It's Metal Max Xeno Reborn or something like that?
Yeah, that already came out. That came out earlier this year. Yeah.
Oh, maybe I was reading about a possible Western release. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because that one's supposed to improve on Xeno because it was kind of lackluster and stuff. I don't know about this other one, actually.
I can't find any information on it either, but Metal Max Xeno Reborn and Metal Max Xeno Reborn 2 both came out earlier this year. Reborn 2.
Oh, there's a Reborn 2. Oh, geez.
Yes. That's a sequel to Metal Max Xeno Reborn, which is itself a remake of Metal Max Xeno. Like I said, this series gets complicated.
Yeah.
Just like it's complicated. So, yeah,
It's
that game's
crazy. So, like, I don't know if I'm piecing this together wrong, but it seems like the more the games, like, the less the population is on the planet. So, like, with the first game, there's a lot of towns and there's a lot of, random houses where there's people living and stuff and whatnot. And then, like, by the time of Metal Max Xeno, like, there's a whole system based on if the human race is going to get wiped out or not.
right. Yeah.
And I haven't gone too far in that game, but, like, there's no one on that planet. Just about. There's only like a handful of people I found so far.
Yeah.
So.
Right. So, but anyway, yeah. So, Reborn and Reborn 2 both came out on the PS4 and the Switch. I could not really find any information about this Code Zero. It's probably another remake, because the actual amount of original games in this franchise is actually like pretty small. There's 4 official Metal Max games and a whole bunch. There's also like a couple of like Gaiden games. There was a mobile game. There was an MMORPG released in Japan. A couple of the like other spin-off games like as well too. There was a game announced for the Dreamcast that got canceled. So.
Oh, that sucks.
But the games are popular enough in Japan to also have some Magna and some soundtracks released like for them. So. In Japan at least, the series done like pretty well. So, but it's a very interesting game, like for sure. It's like I didn't know anything like this existed, like this time period. So it's like because we really didn't get introduced for games like this here in the West until like later on that decade, when stuff got coming on the PlayStation. It's a pretty good pick, George. I think we may quibble about the game itself and how enjoyable it is, but just for the actual historical value and historical value of this game and the interesting parts about it, it's pretty interesting. So,
yeah, it's not enough to get your job back here, though.
All right, I'll come with a better game next time.
So do any of you have any final thoughts before we move on to eBay pricing?
No, I think we covered it.
It's good game.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Hey, well, let's talk about since this came up earlier, let's talk about YouTube.
YouTube was first started in 2005 as a video uploading service. Oh, I'm sorry.
There are some complete Let's Plays of this game on there.
Yes.
Some of them cover the Japanese version, some of them cover the translated version. So it looks like an average. If you're not rushing, if you're just trying to do everything properly in this game.
Non-American.
It takes about maybe 7 to 8 hours to finish the game. Based on these long plays.
There's a tool-assisted speedrun for half an hour.
Yes, I saw that. I was going to mention that. So,
I didn't want to watch the whole thing because I didn't want to get spoiled.
But I had to double check because I was like, 30 minutes? That does not sound right for an RPG.
Whoa, that
so I was like, it must be
really
30
fast.
hours. And then, of course, I started watching it and I was like, oh.
Yeah, they knew where to go.
Yeah. Well, tool assist.
It's one of those games where, if you know how to get to the end, you can kind of just go there. And there's, apparently it's, really easy to manipulate the enemies into, not destroying your tank or anything, which is interesting.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, because the AI, follows a pattern, so... once you learn that pattern, you can definitely manipulate it. A lot of older games have that flaw. So, if you don't want to actually sit through the whole game, there are some pretty good long plays out there, which cover it. So, no bugs or cheats that I could find, no codes or anything else like that. So, obviously there are like the equivalent of like Game Genie codes you can play a punch in this game to give you a head to get a leg up.
See,
if you
Joe,
want
you
to,
should have
but-
put Game Genie codes in.
Yeah.
eBay pricing. This is gonna get messy. So because it's pretty complicated.
All right, I got my raincoat on.
You thought the eBay system for last week's game, the last episode was problematic.
jeez.
Oh, geez. Because again, it all depends upon which version do you want. Because there's multiple versions of this game out there that you can buy. So, the game is plentiful on eBay. If you're looking for the, if you're looking for the Japanese original version of the game itself, there are copies to be found pretty easily. There's 29 copies currently listed on eBay, with 7 copies the copy that sold recently. So it's not the most plentiful game, but there are copies out there at any one time to be found. So the pricing of this game is like pretty consistent. Now, that pricing, as I mentioned before, heavily depends upon what version that you're looking for. Let's stick to the Japanese version of this game. If you want a card only, a US seller recently sold a card only version of this game for $15, which is a pretty good price.
Ooh.
Now, no other copies of this game sold recently, but the current prices, at the time of doing this podcast in September of 2020, there were Japanese-based sellers who were selling the game from Japan for card only. Mind you, these prices will include shipping, so these prices are going to be inflated because the game's coming from Japan, obviously. They're asking anywhere from $25 to $75, like this game. Card only coming from Japan. So the person who bought it for $15 here in the States definitely got a steal on it. But so yeah, a little pricey for a cart, but then a cart, considering this is kind of a niche game, I can't say I'm shocked. So if you want a complete copy of the game, it's not that much more expensive. Again, Japanese sellers have a complete version of the game available for sale from Japan for anywhere from $48. So, mind you, like I said, these are asking prices because no copies of this game recently sold of the game itself beyond that one cart version of the game. So, now obviously this game is available as a repro because like most Japanese games that are available with a ROM has been translated. You can buy the game if you want to in a US cart where someone's already taken the time to put the translated ROM like onto a cart, give it a US style sticker, make it look like what it would have looked like had it probably come out here in the States. And so usually we talked about this before. Usually those prices are higher because the person's put extra work into it. Not in this case. There's some copies of the cart recently, the translated version of the cart of the game on US style cart recently sold for anywhere from $20 to $23. So,
oh wow,
yeah, like it's a pretty good price.
I want to buy that.
If you want a game with a box mock-up, you actually have choices for this, which surprised me because I've not seen this before. There are some sellers based in China who are offering a translated version of the game on a US-style cart with a plastic plastic clam case like those old style VHS tapes. Like remember the
that sounds like one of those. I forgot what the brand is, but there's a website that you can buy universal cartridge cases for.
Yeah. So
and it's got like a plastic thing over it, like a slip. It's kind of like a PS2 case where like you could slip in artwork and stuff.
Well, in this case, actually, you actually open up the case and put the game inside of it. So that's why I said it kind of, it's kind of like no style, like it's about the same.
As opposed to any other game case that you can't put the game inside of it.
Well, the artwork also in this case looks like it's actually silk screened like onto the front. So, but yeah. Anyway, if you want that version, you can get that from China for like $36. So,
China.
Now, somebody over here in the West, in the US, has also taken it one step further and created a mock-up US style box. How the game might have, how the box might have looked at the game and actually gotten a US release. Obviously, this is more niche. This is more expensive. He's selling that for $66. So, sorry. These are sold prices. They're both Chinese box version and the US this style box version Those are store prices. So, yeah. So like I said, prices are all over the place. It all depends on it all depends on what version of the game you want.
Guys, we have a problem. We never talked about the crazy scientist.
Oh, him. Yes, he makes return like later games, doesn't he?
Yes, every Metal Max game I played, he's in that game.
Well, talk about then, George.
Joe, have you ever died in the game?
No.
Really?
Huh.
Okay.
Okay.
No, that's not true. I died at the cannon part.
Oh, okay. All right.
But
Yeah.
did you die or did you run away?
Oh man, now we're really getting inside baseball. That was like a week ago. I'm so horrible.
All right. Anyway, if your whole party dies,
I want to say that I did die, but I'm not 100% sure.
there's this crazy scientist, and he shows up in like almost all the other games, and you talk to him. If you just have one, or if your whole party's not dead, you can go talk to him, and then he revives them, and you put the corpse up on the slab, and he shocks the crap out of them. And he's like, "Ah, yes, live, and then your party member comes back to life. But if your whole party dies, your dad drags you to the scientist, and he's like, "God dang, kid, got himself killed. What's the problem, kid? I told you not to go out there." And he sounds just like that.
I'm sure he does.
And you get revived. So, like, although this game is difficult, there's never a game over. There's just always there's just always a level of you're screwed, where like you could have broken your tank and then died. Your tank's like on the other side of the world. How the heck are you gonna get back to it?
Grab
And
the
that
tank.
really sucks. You'd have to buy like a dog system for your other tank. See, I only buy one dog system. By the way, the dog system is the teleport system in this game. That's apparently what it translates to, is dog system. And that's what they call it in all the fan translations. And then in Metal Max Xeno and Metal Saga, which are the two games that officially came out over here, they don't call it the dog system. It's called teleport. What? That's boring. But I personally only had one dog system module on a tank, so I would usually screw myself over because I would die and then I would have to try to get back to the tank, and that was a pain in the ass.
Yeah, this game's definitely a lot easier to play in emulation. Like you use the heck out of save states.
No save states. There's no reason to. You die and then you just pick up the pieces of the broken mirror and you glue it back together.
Or you just die and watch YouTube.
You will
I do
play your Metal Max and you will like it.
I do partially feel bad that I kind of cheesed this one by like kind of giving up and just going straight to YouTube.
I'm gonna kidnap Joan. I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Well, it's a challenging
Tie
game.
into a
I mean, like the game, but like most games, it does get easier once you get into the game. But those first couple hours are a real difficult learning curve.
Yeah.
So I mean, I can understand getting frustrated.
Once you get into the groove of things, is that the saying? I don't know. I just made out. I don't know. Once you get used to everything, it's not so bad. But a lot of the times you have to, at least in my case, what I found I had to do was just do a bunch of grinding either for money or for experience or whatever. And I don't know. There's still stuff I don't even understand about the game. Like, what does combat level specifically do? What does driving level specifically do? And I have an idea of what it does, and obviously it's better to have a higher driving level, but I don't know. Greg, have you found any answers to that?
Nothing spelled out in writing.
I feel like it might affect things like accuracy and stuff, but I don't know. And evasion, maybe?
Well,
but I don't know.
Driving seems to impact your ability to be able to do speed and like in the dodging
Really?
factors, like in combat.
okay.
Yeah. So because you're a better driver, so you can like drive the tank better. So
I guess that makes sense.
right. So that's what it seems like. It seems like you, the fact this game has so little, the fact this game has so little information available on it in print here in the West doesn't help things any. So
Yeah, I wonder what the manual would say about it.
yeah, it's too bad that when the fans group translate the game, they don't bother to translate the manual with it. That would help.
I mean, if I wonder if there's any images of the manual online or something.
I'm
'Cause
sure
you
there
could
is.
just-
Yeah.
You can
so-
honestly just use Google Translate to translate the manual.
Well, pictures don't really work for Google Translate. That's the problem. So
Well, that's why you use your phone, because Google Translate has that like live translation thing where you use your camera and it translates it for you.
oh, I actually
in
didn't
the
know
end-
that. Okay.
In the end,
Yeah.
is it really worth it? George is the only one who likes it. I mean, come on.
Well, I like
Wow.
it. I'm like, I don't like it as much as he does, but just like nobody do like the game. So, but yeah,
Just giving George a hard time.
yeah, if we were still doing that other podcast, it would be interesting to talk about the Atlas released game. But
Are you talking about that Super Nintendo podcast?
no, you're on that
That's
one.
not a
right
very
now.
good one. I mean, that's a very good podcast.
But anyway, anybody else
How
have
much
anything
would you hate me if I just made a Super Famicom podcast?
I'd say go for it because you'd get you'd be working on that for like 40 years compared to the 20 years this one's going to take.
Yeah, but all you'd be
jeez.
doing is covering the 300 RPGs that are over there.
I thought you were going to say the 300 pachinko games.
Well, there's that too.
All right, we're
Yeah, I
playing
think it's that-
Pachinko Wars 25 and
Yeah, I think it's I don't think there's that many games. That many games. They're talking about the PlayStation. Planning to get those high volumes.
oh jeez.
But anyway, anybody else have anything else to say about this game before we wrap it up?
Nope.
Okay, Joe.
No, that's why I was silent.
Okay, all right.
Joe, I don't know if you have anything to say about the game in general.
I mean, I've said some stuff, and it's like I said, it's kind of middle of the road, and it's like I just don't have anything unique to add to it compared to what you guys have to say. So, I'm okay with hanging back this episode. It's all good.
Fair enough. So, but alrighty then, folks. As always, we appreciate you listening to the podcast very much. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions for future games, etc., feel free to hit us up on our Facebook group, or you can also send me an email directly to the SNES podcast at yahoo.com. Joe, where can people like reach you at?
They can find me on Facebook at Joe Koppel, or they can email me at joesux30@gmail.com, or also find that on Twitter. Yeah, that Twitter thing.
I was wondering what you were going to say.
The one with the bird.
Cool.
The question is, what does Joe suck, though?
We've been over that story. You missed it.
So George, what about you? What are you working on these days?
Recovering from this work injury.
Oh.
That's the real talk. Nothing. I'm doing nothing really. At least right now, I'm not really up to anything.
Well, if anybody does want to reach you for any reason, where can they do so at?
Twitter, I guess. I'll see the message. I just don't really use it that much. It sounds really good, doesn't it? I mean, I legit, I always respond to anyone who sends me a message or tweets out to me or whatever.
So what's your
But,
handle?
It's _Derpkin_. Jeez,
Okay.
It's been so long, I don't even remember. Apparently, that's _DERPKITTEN_.
Cool. Alrighty then. Well, as always, George, thank you very much for coming on the podcast with us. We'll be sure to have you back again in the future.
I don't know. I feel like Joe's gonna kick me out.
Speaking about Joe, it's your pick next time, sir. What do you want to cover?
All right, so the only problem I had was I picked two games because I didn't know
You
if
can't
had
do
already
that.
covered one or not. So my first pick is Kirby Superstar.
Ooh.
Okay.
So if you haven't covered that, that's what we're covering.
We've not covered that game, so
Excellent.
Is that a multiplayer game?
I don't know why.
I
You want to
think
come
it
back on,
is.
George? Because denied.
just out of curiosity, Joe, what was your backup pick?
Jurassic Park.
Oh, yes, okay.
Yeah,
all
no,
right.
go play Kirby.
Yeah, we'll cover that one later on. Kirby sounds good.
I
for next time.
recently
what was
played
your
the
other
Jurassic.
Home Improvement.
No, I recently played Jurassic Park for the regular Nintendo, and I was like, oh, like I wonder how the Super Nintendo stacks up. And then I was like, I'll just wait until we cover it on the podcast.
Oh no.
So that's why I was like Kirby Superstar, and then I was like, if Kirby gets shot down, then you kind of have the revenge pick of Jurassic Park.
Well, I actually have played both games, and spoiler, I actually think both games are decent for different reasons.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, like, Jurassic Park is not the worst game on the system. It's better than the sequel is.
Nice.
But, okay, but yes, Kirby Superstar, that's available. Yeah, that's on the virtual system, isn't it? I think so. I mean,
I believe so.
yeah, okay. Yeah,
I mean, it's
so,
definitely available on mine. So
Yeah. So,
It's on my computer.
yeah. But yeah. Well, Joe and I were both lucky enough to be able to get our hands like on a mini, so because as I mentioned before, Nintendo is still selling refurbished versions, their versions of them online. So
Yeah, and I actually think they're still available even as we speak.
I think
now,
that
so.
yes, I think they are. So I don't know for how long. So if you want one, grab one, grab them, because once they're gone, I'm sure. But
I got a Super Nintendo Mini. It's called a Linux laptop.
Well, I had a Raspberry Pi until I had to ship it off to my friend because the materials I bought to build him a Raspberry Pi ended up being fake. So
Hey there, George popping in during an editing sesh here. This conversation got really long and just all over the place. So we're gonna end it here. Goodbye. Hope you had fun.
Nintendo controls 80% of the video market. But no matter how you play the game, or which game you play, things definitely have come a long way since Pac-Man. Now you're playing with power.